What's going on, nomads, party people, and strangers everywhere across the internet? My name is V, like the letter, and welcome to a brand new countdown for you all, where this time, part 1 and hopefully part 2 are being edited by my awesome new editor of HeyItsMeChriss! Yeah! Where we're kicking off the ball with the new editor by talking about horror games. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Horror games is a broad subject. What do you mean by that? Well, in the same sense as thrillers and suspense type stories, horror really does leave a hallmark for a lot of people involving the genre of fear. With horror, you have no idea what to expect because it only targets what makes you truly afraid, what sends your whole senses a tingling and your whole entire world and perspective turn upside down in a menagerie of madness. So we're going to be going over the top 10 of them. Not in a good or bad, but actually analyzing them for what they truly are. Enough babbling and trying to act like I'm the next Green Scorpion, even though that's a title I'm hopefully coveting someday. Let us go on down with Countdown. Coming in at number 10, we have Until Dawn.
Imagine a night
This was the right thing to do.
where every decision
What the hell was that?
and every single action
I just saw someone at the cabin.
affects your fate
Very funny. Guys, come
and the
on.
fate of those around you.
Oh my God, what the hell was that?
We need to go get help now.
Now, with this one, it's kind of an odd choice to start off the list because a lot of people know this game already and have dissected it to just be a throwback to the 90s horror movie cliche stuff, but it's actually a little bit more complex than that. In actuality, it's pretty much a step-by-step staple about revenge meets supernatural horror. Every single element just intertwining and interweaving with itself to form into a coherent plot, even with cardboard cutout characters of stereotypes about what you would see in a horror movie, is actually pretty well done and executed in a manner I never thought could happen in modern day. With a whole story first being brought about from two teenagers dying to then escalate into that weird as hell midsection that actually has a little bit more follow through if executed a lot more properly, is a pretty good telling of an interesting horror story for what it is. It was trying to become first the original story to then be a sequel. But I think what leads it to only be a merit for number 10 is just how it just jumbles up everything for the plot itself to be first revenge, then supernatural. When the same vein for a story like this, you need to air it out and let it breathe more to build up the suspense for a sequel material for something like this. The first Until Dawn could just be focused on Josh just dealing with the fact that Beth and Hannah died a horrible accident and or went missing and he's trying to get revenge. Then build up to sequel material about the mysteries of the mountain. That way it's a reoccurring thing that can bring you back for more. That ends up giving you that whole drive to see what's going to transpire next. But I'm done talking about this. Let's move on to number 9. Coming in at number 9, let's talk about Dead Space for a second.
Isaac, it's me. It's all falling apart here. I can't believe what's happening.
How many times you watched that thing? Guess you really miss her. Don't worry, we're almost there. You'll be able to look her up once we're on board. Sounds like you do have a lot of catching up to do.
Now, I know a lot of people would just be thinking to themselves, how does Dead Space qualify as a horror game in itself for what has come? Well, look no further than the inspiration for it of Alien, directed by Ridley Scott. A quiet venture into space where all of a sudden the biggest threats are either alien or the people aboard your ship. You have no idea what it is, and just builds up that suspense and horror and terror. That's the thing that you get when you're playing as Isaac in the first Dead Space, and even the second one, but we're just going to focus on the first one. That ambiance of who's going to be trying to gnaw at your flesh if you're not careful, that suspense that just shivers down your spine when you're just trying to go down quiet corridors thinking that you're all safe and you're all alone and have no other problems just start dwindling more and more into your mind so that you think that everything is alright, that everything is secure, but you have no idea until that last minute when all of a sudden, boom! You get hit all of a sudden by one instinctive monster that just sends you into a giant spiral of nothing more than despair and melancholy sort of mentalities that lends you into a giant mindset of how am I going to survive? How am I ever going to manage? Am I even going to survive through the next level, the next chapter? Am I starting to lose my sanity? Am I starting to actually go into a giant pit of depression? That shit is incredible for how you want to set up something, but the fucking problem with this is that it built up for itself something that it could not deliver by the time the sequels came out, that dwindled into nonsense, as well as getting further away from the plot the further it continued. And that is a problematic thing for trying to make a very coherent story that many people would want to just dive into more and more. From that whole ambiance feel from the original game that could never be matched up, it's still a higher enough thing to be at number 9, but just the sequels alone kind of drag it to where it is at just where it is. I'm sorry, Dead Space fans. Coming at number 8, let's go into the world of Rapture with BioShock 1. Now, on the surface, BioShock 1 wouldn't be considered a horror game. It would be sort of like a puzzle slash first-person shooter slash supernatural-based story. Or is it? Now, would you kindly delude all of your senses to then go into another world where you're the only real survivor of sanity trying to simply survive in no more than a battle of wits against the most insane people with superpowers brought about from a chemical by the name of Adam, and even so being hunted by things called big daddies and little sisters? Now, would you kindly also have your entire world be ruled by a single quote, by a single man, simply sending you on more and more errands just to eliminate more competition, more people trying to lead a rebellion, and more of a sinister outlook that leaves you simply thinking, am I doing the right? Am I doing the wrong? Am I truly surviving? Am I a puppet? Now, would you kindly tell me that that does not make for a suspensing, very thrilling, psychological horror story alone? Well, that's enough for a basis for it to be number 8, babies! BioShock 1 set up a giant sort of mainframe for itself that really did show that modern games can take notes from older games that are surprisingly higher on this list, that really do encapsulate how to make a good grimdark story with psychological areas of expertise to then go into an even more elegant facet for itself. And although the sequels kind of diverged itself kind of in the same vein as Dead Space, it still kept that hallmark thing of the psychological being the absolute focus for where the narrative is going, how it's supposed to be enacted and focused on. That way you're not just dwindling out the pace to just be something that's mindless and repetitive, which could be a lot of games that did not make this list, now that I think about it. But we're not going to dwell on that. No, we're not going to dwell on that, as we're going to move on to the next one. Coming in at number 7, not because of the game itself, but because of the controversy behind the character. Now, we've all had creepypasta type stuff that we thought would make a wonderful video game, and we kind of thought it would be funny if one of them did get a video game. Yeah, the punchline is Slender Man. Yes, Slender Man, aka Slender the Arrival, is probably the most quintessential horror games a lot of people think of, aside from Five Nights at Freddy's, that many people feel like is a good point-and-click type mystery game of just who can solve the mystery first before they get ensnared and killed by insert horror character here. Something a lot of people stem from when it comes to various different mediums like Freddy or Jason or Mike Myers in certain areas, or Pinhead or Jigsaw. Pretty much a lot of those characters from the horror movie tropes end up lending a lot of things to what Slender's whole video game was. But like I said, what makes this whole video game itself stand out a lot more to be where it is right now isn't the game itself. It's the controversy behind the character. Where, as we all have clarified in various news reports, there have been people that tried to literally kill others to appease this potentially fictional creature that many people just pretty much see as nothing more than a creepypasta, giving this character, as well as this game, a whole new light to itself. To give it the merit that a lot of people have so many warped desires that end up leaving them in a very dark and depressing state that leads them only on this huge path to want to slaughter and diminish all humanity for not only themselves but their own victims, to enact something for a being that we may not know actually exists, since the world is filled with a lot of things that we can't explain. I'm not going to say it does exist, I'm not going to say it doesn't exist, because pretty much anything in this world can happen. If they can find proof that, for some odd reason, there are very, very ancient fish at the very depths of the ocean that we still can't explore, then anything is possible. But just to give this whole game new credence and life from literally trying to kill someone in your school, maybe there is something that's very similar to Slender Man that's causing all these horrors. It's kind of a cathartic thing, but also a tragic one. Or maybe I'm just kind of overanalyzing the fact that it's somewhat lore-ish. Oh god, my green scorpion is showing. Let's go to the next entry. Okay, moving on from something that kind of goes into a psychological evaluation into something that is truly a horrifying experience for all those involved. Yeah, Japan, you have a lot of games to answer for, but let's go with culprit number 7 on your top 10 list of fucked up games involving kids in high school. I'm talking about You Corpse Party. I don't know whose bright idea was it to write a game story about several kids trying to do this stupid ass game in an abandoned school that enacted horrors upon horrors of activating vengeful spirits, ancient curses, and pretty much a lot of people in their whole class group being slaughtered in a very gruesome manner. But honestly, I want to know, because this is very fucked up. Throughout the entire game, when you're just trying to uncover all the things involving the original curse, as well as all of the video files and whatnot, it slips into its own unique story facet of trying to avoid the killer, and trying to not lose all of the characters, despite the fact that you lose a giant majority of the cast. I mean, it's not even like the game is trying to make you have an absolute ending with all of them surviving right off the bat. They're literally being slaughtered off because they did not feel strong enough in the narrative. And that's not even scratching the surface with this game. There are many different factors that could go into this, but I'm only going to focus on what matters most for this countdown, which is that of the story's whole entire premise, just revolving around children still being scarred and pretty much manipulated and tortured into something that they never thought would be possible for themselves in a dark situation. Whether it's the kids being cursed or the child that ended up causing the curse itself, from the parents that took care of it to the caretakers and eventually even the school itself. It's a pretty fucked up game that really warps the psyche into the point where you're not even sure what is or isn't factual anymore, as it just pretty much dilutes yourself from what you could or could not do after just playing the game for a couple of minutes when you see the first murder / suicide brought about from this whole atmosphere. And I gotta say, that is really not cool. So, seriously, the people that made Corpse Party, why did you make this in the sequels? It's pretty fucked up, but it makes for a compelling horror game. But it's still pretty fucked up. You know, guys, I kind of feel a little unclean now that I've talked about Corpse Party the way that I did, as well as Slender. But I'm gonna be going back into this a little bit more later. But I want to, again, give thanks to my editor of Hey It's Me Chris, coming at you guys with this one. And I'll see you guys with part 2 eventually.